In this episode, we bring you a panel discussion from the 49th ASEAN Innovation Business Platform recorded in Kuala Lumpur, with leaders from PETRONAS Digital, MITE, PayNet and SanDisk, as we explore how Malaysia's enterprises are aligning digital transformation with sustainability goals. The discussion highlights how AI and data are being applied to improve efficiency, reduce emissions, and build resilience in critical sectors such as energy and infrastructure. Please enjoy this episode from AIBP.
The AIBP ASEAN B2B Growth Podcast is a series of fireside chats with business leaders in Southeast Asia focused on growth in the region. Topics discussed include business strategy, sales and marketing, enterprise technology, and innovation.
Welcome. Good morning. As you can see, the audience is still relatively quiet. So I need this to be like outstanding so we can get all of them up, laughing, enjoying the discussion and posting a lot so they can win the return flight and accommodation to any part in ASEAN. So I'm going to start off with you, Rushdi, because you're an advisory board member and you lead an interesting organization which looks at technology in Malaysia itself, right? Tell us a little bit more about what you view about ESG at MITE.
Well, when it comes to ESG at MITE, we believe in walking the talk. I think one of the things that MITE does is actually we're providing advisory to the government in terms of how to approach, build policies around a lot of things. And one of it, of course, is about green sustainability. But I find it, we found it that, sometimes it's hard to do policy advocacy without actually doing it ourselves. So for the last 2 years, for example, we've taken the step of doing carbon auditing, GHG auditing about MITE, because we need a baseline to say, how much have we spent on carbon, for example, then we can start taking steps to actually reduce it. So for the last 2 years, I'm glad to say that we're able to reduce it by about 15 to 20% because we know. But that's the thing, because we've done it, so we can start telling people, this is how you can do it, this is how you can approach it. The problem to a lot of organizations, I find, that where do we start? So by knowing that, so what we do is actually now we have solar panels installed in our premise. And bear in mind, going green is not cheap. We're a government institution. So we start installing solar panels. We don't serve water, mineral water in that form. In fact, we don't have. We tried this actually. It's so expensive. So what happened is we change it to carton rather than glass bottles. Then we invested in when the time comes for us to replace our fleet of vehicles, we start using electric vehicles. Then we installed chargers at our premise. Again, this all takes money, but we were doing it gradually. But it starts by embarking on this GHG report, whereby we embark and we're understanding, because we need a baseline. Because how do you start without knowing where? Because you need to know where you are to understand where you're going to. So of course, if you're talking about that, hence after we do that, then I can simply say to others, hey, you do this because we've done it. So it's easier to tell people because based on experience. So I think that matters as well. Yep.
Thank you very much, Rushdi. You're absolutely right? If you don't do it yourself, it's very hard to get people to do it. Although you got me a little bit shocked there when you say you don't serve water. That will be quite tough. But I understand what you're coming from. Well, over to you, Ejiksha, because you know, when we think about Malaysian companies, right, Petronas rank really high up there. When they ask people about what is the first company that they know about Malaysia, maybe they say Maybank first, maybe Petronas second, around there. And everyone knows the end goal, right? Because you have set a very ambitious net zero carbon emissions 2050 target. How does this critical enterprise-wide commitment directly shape the strategic priorities and digital agenda at PETRONAS Digital?
Yeah, thanks for that question. You see, you should have had the Chief Sustainability Officer here.
Also, yes.
But it's okay. But I think setting that 2050 net zero carbon emission goals is really a challenge for us to look at how we deliver our business in totality. Now, we are in the business of energy, and energy is something that the world needs, people needs, is a growth catalyst for. And I think having that commitment is triggering us to think, how can we deliver this energy in a more sustainable manner, right? So while the strategies remain in terms of delivering energy, the transition that we're talking about is really about delivering those energy cleaner, more sustainable. And this is where we start relooking things into, how can we do things a bit more efficiently, more cost effectively. I know when we look at the ESG aspects, it's always, I like the presentation just now that we had. It was to look beyond compliance, right? If you look at the history, there's always been these requirements to meet certain level of emissions, there's certain responsibilities that you have to the communities and stuff like that. But it has always seen either as it's evolving from charity. Now it's compliance. But what we are really challenging ourselves is, do we see value? Right. Now, when we see value, there's value that is in terms of the new energy systems that we have. As you know, we also have our clean energy arm right now, Gentari, that's exploring new value streams in clean energy. Even within the traditional business of oil and gas, carbon capture and storage is quickly turning from an opportunity into an source of revenue, right? And for this, I just wanted to cite a kind of interesting example here, that currently we get bidders for our oil and gas blocks who are not just motivated by the economic potential of the production, but they're really looking at it as reservoirs for storing CO2, right? So this is where, as you can see, even in our petroleum economics, we have a reverse formula right now, right? It's not about how you can extract, but how much can come in, right? So when you add all of these things in terms of business strategies, those are the pivots that we're making. Now, coming to my day job, digital, right? So what we see is that at the center of all of this transition is really about data, right? I think I don't want to speak about data, AI. I think all of you have more power in your pockets to talk about this subject. But what I just want to land a little bit here is the thought leadership behind that. It's not really about the amount of data. It's about the lineage of data. And I think that one, as I said, for the last 5 or 6 years, we've invested a lot in tech, cloud, cybersecurity, and all the things in order for us to harness data. But the challenge that the ESG requirements present to us right now is the ability to trace that, because this data, it has to be auditable. It has to be credible out there, right? So just to give you an example, measurement, reporting, verification, that's a 3-step process. And then you multiply it by your organization hierarchy. And for, I think, Joseph, you'll relate to me after this. We are also a manufacturing plant, by the way. It starts at equipment level. It rolls up to an asset. It becomes part of a business. It becomes part of an enterprise. there's a supply chain, there's a regulator. So there's 6 steps, right? 6 times 3, 18. So you probably see one data point 18 times for one equipment. So the challenge that we have right now is to create that lineage in our enterprise systems and at the same time not burden the people to be, reporting, collecting data like the spreadsheets, right? We love spreadsheets, right? But so those are the things that we're looking at from a digital perspective in terms of data and how it will actually bring credibility to all our ESG efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Injik Shah. For Azleena, very similar question to you, right? So when ESG becomes like a board level topic, how do you translate it to a digital strategy? So just now, Injik Shah has actually walked us through some of the areas where he looked at, right, all the different data points. Is it the same at PayNet? How do you look at it?
Okay, thank you. And thank you for inviting me. I think I just need to do a bit of temperature check. Does anyone know or doesn't know who PayNet is? Anyone doesn't know who PayNet is? Doesn't know. Okay, there are some who doesn't know. So basically, PayNet is actually the nation's retail payments infrastructure provider. Now, just to give a bit of context, we're kind of like the unsung hero. Unlike PETRONAS, when you land from KLIA, you see PETRONAS, people will stop by there and take pictures, right? So we were wondering why. But if you look at PayNet, they just look, and you don't really notice us. So the thing is, the only thing that we got super unpopular for was Do It Now and Do It Now QR during the pandemic. But then after that, we quickly picked up. We are now, quite kind of like well known for our digital payment context, right? Now, one of the key things that I'm kind of like super proud of, because when I joined PayNet in 2019, people were still using cash, right? By the time this year, if you go by the mama shop or the roadside stall, or even people with push carts and selling stuff, they will ask you whether to pay by tapping or by scanning. No more cash, right? So that's the impact that we did over the past 5 years, right? So the thing is, it came with one singular vision. And that vision is actually around what is the future of payments. Now, the future of payments, we see it is actually from here, right? Everything will be within your mobile, right? So basically, in other words, I'm not sure how many of you still carry a wallet. I don't. I haven't been doing that for the past 3-4 years, right? Because you can go anywhere, anytime. You can actually pay with your mobile. Now, that particular singular vision needs to be translated into some kind of board discussion. And that board discussion is around making sure that every single payment that PayNet does is for shared prosperity. For shared prosperity. It has to be for all and everyone in Malaysia, regardless of whether you're in the most highest area, in the most affluent places, to the most rural of kampongs, right? So in order to impact that, you have to bring digital into the rural area, into the most outer outskirts. And where do we start? We start with our values, right? So when our first CEO of PayNet is actually an Australian, he started with, are we the one that's the biggest culprit, the pollutants, right? So we did a net zero assessment, kind of like a back of the envelope. We found that our carbon footprint was quite negligible. So then we started to turn into, what are we good at? Keeping our payment system safe, right? As we keep our payment system safe, we then found out that by default, we are really good at governance, the G part, right? And on top of that, because we keep payments safe, we're super good at keeping our ecosystem safe. Because the weakest link, the strength of a chain is its weakest link, right? So in that regard, how we did it is that we started off, or rather, our key stakeholder and also our regulator, Bank Negara, actually asked us to kind of like help them spearhead the National Fraud Portal, right? To stem fraud, and then before that, it was the National Scam Response Center. All that is embedded within our strategy called PayNet Secure. It's a suite of products. I think you heard, our Chief Information Security Officer, I think he's sitting over there, Mel, sharing with us about how he and his team elevated the security posture of the nation to become more cyber resilient, more secure, which is actually an element of the governance part, right? So then we quickly realized that from that bigger picture perspective, we have this ability to influence our ecosystem by just doing what we're doing. And therefore, we started to look at other areas, which is the social element. And in that regard, we found that there's still a group of us who's unserved and unbanked, right? And that's where the digital strategy becomes kind of like pivotal. And how do we do that? We started off 2 programs. The first program is PayNet Chamba. PayNet Chamba is about empowering the unserved, unbanked to become served and banked. And then we hand off to our ecosystem participant. The second one is about preparing talent. I think you touched upon whether I would want to speak about talent. I would love to speak about talent, because the very second thing that people mention about whether be it ESG, be it AI, is the dearth of talent. So we started PayNet Akar. And PayNet Akar is around building future-ready digital payments talent so that they can serve the nation better and bring back to the ideal of shared prosperity for the rest of the country. So if you ask me where ESG and going digital and doing AI sits in the grand scheme of PayNet strategy, because we have a 5-year strategy, it's called PayNet Strategy 2023-2027, it sits at the foundation. It's part of our values: aspiration, curiosity, grit, integrity, and finally embedded with ESG. And on top of that, there were 2 other layers that's quite critical: people, and that's in our culture transformation program that we're super excited to announce, where we are going to embed AI considerations. I'm going to cover that in a short while. And the last one is actually technology, to keep us at high availability and most importantly, payment sovereignty and kind of like strategic autonomy. Maybe I'll stop there.
Thank you, Azleena. I did tell the audience that you have a lot to share, and thank you very much for setting such a nice framework. One of the audience actually wanted to say, because you say that some people may not know PayNet, right? They say that you have made their lives a lot easier every day by QR and do it now. So acknowledgement, even though without the Petronas Towers, people do appreciate PayNet. Well, Joseph, you have a hard job because your previous 3 panelists did give a very, very good overview about how ESG is linked to their strategy and how they are using digital into building this ESG strategy. Perhaps you can wow us by giving us your take on how ESG is embedded within SanDisk and perhaps your view on technology in this.
Yeah, thanks, YY. Yeah, just a segue. We need a mobile to make payments, right? So for SanDisk, if you have a mobile, you will most likely have our storage in your mobile. So you need storage as well to make that payment as well. So coming back to the topic like ESG, right? So just give some background. SanDisk, we are kind of an independent company right now since February. Previously, we were part of Western Digital. So we just spun off in February as an independent company right now, listed in NASDAQ. All right, so we are in the process of defining our sustainability goals. Previously, we had our sustainability goals under the WD umbrella. So now I'm actively involved in defining our ESG or sustainability goals, working with the corporate office, right up to the board of audit committee and all that. We are presenting to them. So before we even derive at our ESG goal, sustainability goal, there's this methodology called maturity assessment, right? So we do a maturity assessment, understanding the stakeholders' input. We call it a dual maturity assessment, inward and outward, understanding the assessment, the stakeholders' interests. So from that, what stands out for us is climate change, which resonates with the topic that we are talking, climate change. So climate change is, I think, is given. Everybody's focusing on that. And if, in our sense, from a manufacturing point of view, is how are we going in our journey towards decarbonization? So decarbonization, when you talk about decarbonization across the manufacturing footprint, renewable energy comes into picture and our goal towards net zero. These are the two primary things that we're looking at: plants, water, and waste. All right, so we are in the process of defining our goals. So from segue to the technology piece, I'll cover that. But from ESG perspective, renewable energy is given. You can subscribe. Of course, there are many ways that you can subscribe, part of your decarbonization. Malaysia, you have the renewable energy certificates, part of offsets. There's this CREST program that is coming up. Of course, the latest trend that you see, data centers. Data centers are coming up in Johor, Cyberjaya, and all that. So you need a lot of energy and a lot of water. So there is a mandate for all organizations to decarbonize your entire footprint. And with the CREST program, they're kind of opening up beyond data centers to even existing consumers. So you have an opportunity that you can do to part of your decarbonization journey. So that is given. You can subscribe to these programs as part of your footprint emissions reduction program. But coming back to the technology piece, so that is kind of, you can subscribe, but technology piece is within your control. From a manufacturing plant perspective, we rely a lot on technology because we also need to look at abatement, your efficiency projects. What can you do to make your process, your operations much more efficient, and also going beyond the factory wall? So we rely, I just give an example. So SanDisk is a World Economic Forum Sustainability Lighthouse, first in Asia. So we were driving that. And also prior to that, we were first in Malaysia, Advanced 4IR Lighthouse by World Economic Forum as well. So I just touched a little bit on the Sustainability Lighthouse use case that we used for the technology. We depended, of course, sensors, right? IoT sensors. There are a lot of IoT sensors, even within the manufacturing plant, let's say on an offshore platform, there are a lot of IoT sensors and data being acquired. The thing is, how are you able to acquire this data? Sensors are available, data is available. So how you acquire this data, but how can you go beyond that and come up with your data model to optimize your overall operations? So that was one of the use cases that we shared with World Economic Forum on our ability to acquire this data, coming up with our own algorithm-based modeling to optimize the whole operations. So you reduce your energy consumption from the utilities, factory utilities, for example, your compressor, your chillers and all that. So that's where data comes in, technology comes in through IoT sensors. And going beyond data is how you come up with your data algorithm-based. But now we are also, again, exploring further in how we can use Gen AI. Gen AI to predict, to come up with a model, and also looking at an end-to-end ecosystem point of view and how we can use Gen AI to go beyond the factory wall, communicating with our customers and also suppliers. So when we were going for this World Economic Forum, there's the one element called enabler, and one of the enabler is tech ecosystem. Tech ecosystem is the ability to share data between customers, your operations and suppliers. Then you have an end-to-end view. Your model becomes much more robust and accurate. So that is where technology comes in, and now you're in the segue of Gen AI, how you can leverage on Gen AI to kind of curate your own model. So I will stop here, and then if you have any other questions.
Thank you, Joseph. That was a very nice overview about how it is also connected to the global standards, right? We have a lot of questions from the floor. So in the interest of time, I'm going to combine one question each for each one of you based on what I understand about experience. Nervous? A little bit? Okay, good. Okay, so the first question is for Encik Shah. So you'll start us off. It's very interesting because we actually had this discussion around the costs in like really driving AI, ESG in that sense, right? And in your role as a CEO of PETRONAS Digital, this question looks at how does the rapid evolution of both AI and ESG frameworks, right? It always evolves quite quickly. So how do you build adaptable strategies that remain relevant, impactful, and perhaps also making sure that the balance between digital transformation and ESG is maintained?
Thanks. There is always a common point, because if you were to chase business performance, you'll be going one way. If you're only thinking of ESG, you'll be going another way. And if you're chasing other objectives that is bestowed upon this organization, you'll be doing something else as well. But there is one common point. And I think this is where we try to go back to the value, right? So it's every single question, every single effort, right? At the end of it will lead to cost. And to run a business, of course, that is something that you're always looking to optimize. But you always try to gather people around the value. What is the value of investing in technology to increase production? What do you improve? Reliability. What technology do you need? IoT, predictive maintenance, stuff like that. If you are more reliable, can you also use your energy to produce it more efficiently, right? And if you're more efficient, you will be cheaper. So when you go back to the thread of value, you almost certain in many cases you'll be ticking off a few boxes at the same time. So what is very important for us right now is that we are very selective in our technology investment. Where will it get us the biggest value? And cost is something real, because you know what? Energy, we want more, we want it clean, we want it now, we want it cheap. All right. So that is the interplay, right? And it's not just a mere cost-cutting exercise. So again, we also have this thing that we call as low as reasonably possible, which is a LARP, we call. It's a risk-based assessment. This is the lowest you can go in terms of your investment. This is the lowest you can go in terms of cost-cutting. When you flip it to value, this is the highest that you can go with the investments that you've made. So we're always playing around that region in all the ventures that we're investing in right now. And we also apply it back to ourselves when we derive the digital and technology strategy. Now, this new thing called AI. If any of you been to the Energy Asia conference last month, and we talk about the energy security, energy transition, driving Asia's energy transition, it was pretty interesting. We need more energy. It needs to be clean. We need technology solutions. AI is at the center of it. And guess what AI does? It needs data centers, and data centers need energy. So it's a circular reference there, right? But again, when you're looking at this, it's like within this circular reference, you got to really identify where will you be applying AI and of the highest value. So again, it's actually good business for us in digital, right? Because we are buying compute power infrastructure from hyperscalers. But now we are also asking them to buy our clean energy for it. So it's a new business model. So they don't just call digital a cost center right now. So let me try and create revenue somewhere else through this exchange and interplay of digital, AI, and ESG. Thanks.
Thank you. I hope that answered two of your questions together. Very good answer. Thank you very much, Encik Shah. For you, Rushdi, if I could ask this question from the audience itself. So this is a little bit more on Bursa Malaysia ESG platform. So now all listed companies are required to submit reports, right? And I know you're not in charge of setting the standards, but you talked about how you did it yourself. You did the ESG reporting yourself to really walk the talk. So in terms of what Bursa Malaysia has done, do you think that is something that can be adapted to you? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, I'd like to follow up on the points that was made by the three speakers as well, because due to the fact that what motivates, we need to do this beyond the compliance issue, isn't it? So what motivates us is different, and you touch on the points with regards to what motivates each organizations also would be different. So I think one of the things that I would be careful about is actually we can't have a one size fits all solution. So each company will have a different strategy, different starting points with regards to how to approach ESG and digital transformation, because we might have different perspective on certain things. But it's interesting that a few years ago, Mike did a survey amongst the high tech sectors, and saving the earth is at the bottom of the motivation in going ESG and digital transformation. Number one, 2, and I think about 3 is all about cost considerations. So the motivation is different. Mine is a not-for-profit organization. Even then, a member of our board was saying to us with regards to, if I don't see the bottom line, I'll go after your bottom. So, so it's hard to actually motivate the board and the organization to go ESG and digital transformation without having this clear-cut understanding with regards to how does this will impact the operations, the bottom line of the organization. So as you were saying, in terms of setting up the standards, again, coming back to the questions, again, when we embark on this, actually the company that we use, or the auditing company, is using the same company that does auditing for the Bursa company that's in the Bursa. So our motivation was a bit different with regards to, because one of the things, if you realize, the ESG, the compliance is being put down to the private organizations, the companies. Now, Malaysia has about 16 million working population. The largest employers of working adults is the government, about 10%, 1.6. So what Mike is trying to prove is actually the government also can do it. So we're saying 10% of the working population works in the government, so government could also do it by taking a walking the talk. So not only standards being deployed to the private sectors, but government also could take the extra step by actually embarking on this as well. So standards could be a compliance thing, but standards could also be whereby it is understood amongst organizations that this is where what we want to achieve. So I think that's what we're trying to do at this moment. Yeah.
Thank you. Another great answer. The next question is for Azleena. I think this is very relevant to what you just shared, right? The question is around how can AI be used to empower local communities to foster inclusive growth in the pursuit of ESG goals, rather than it just serving large corporations?
I love that question. Anyway, at PayNet, we actually cover AI in kind of like multiple prongs. The first prong is what you heard from Mel yesterday. I hope you covered that, Mel, on the graph AI and that sort of stuff. So basically, we use AI for fraud detection and prediction, right? So we stop fraud in that particular part, right? So that will touch upon all levels of all strata of society. Then there's the broader level kind of like work that we're doing around AI. It's called financial GPT. Now, financial GPT is actually around taking payments data, wherever it may reside, by whoever it is, cleaning it, structuring it, labeling it, standardizing it so that it becomes AI ready, right? Now, this is actually a mammoth project because data is not very, very clean in Malaysia. So that's the second part of the work that we're doing is actually around data analytics and using that for growth. Now, an extension of that is actually something that is called because the thing is right now you're seeing AI in all these other contexts, AI in payments. Now, if we were to, we won't Google anymore, isn't it? We will chat GPT it, right? If we were to do a chat GPT on what is called agentic commerce, right? That's the third context within which payments will exist, right? So agentic commerce is the use of AI agents within the platforms that you're using right now, be it ChatGPT, Microsoft Pilot, Anthropic, whoever, that allows you to make autonomous payments without any human in the middle. Scary, isn't it? So the next level of iteration would be when they do that for you, it means that they will troll the www and look for payments and look for websites that provides you the best value according to your instructions. Now, the next question that we need to ask ourselves is that when it comes to small businesses who are not yet digitalized, what will happen to them? They will get fully left behind. So that's one thing that we're looking at and we're watching very closely. And it's actually in R&D stage. I'm zipping my mouth because the thing is it's actually still in the baking part. That will be our next strategy. But the third thing that I'm excited to share was that when we do our work under PayNet Chamba, one of the key things that we realize is that this lack of structured data that I mentioned just now is stopping people from getting financial access, right? And because of that, we are working with fintechs that can do things like transparent benefits disbursement. Now, there's this one particular fintech that we're working with. It's called Go Baraka. What do? They take any benefits or donation. Normally, when we give money to people, do we know where it goes to? Is this a donation to a particular foundation or a particular charitable body? You don't know where it goes to, right? In this particular platform, what happens is that they take a 2% cut. It's programmable. You can program it in such a way that I want this to go towards buying uniforms for school-going children in Penampang. And it will only be used for that. And you have your own dashboard that would be able to tell you where and right down to the label and to the brand of uniforms that these people buy. So that extracts good insights for the analytics for people who want to give donation from retailers, right? So on average, what sizes, what type of uniforms, is it male or female? Is it co-curriculum or normal uniforms? All those will be extracted through this AI capability. Now, the other thing about it is that because the behavior of using the benefits, things like Sumbangan Rahmah, if you were to go through that particular platform, you can actually know the 500 ringgit is spent for what? Is it grocery? And even it goes down to the brand of flour that these people are buying, right? Then you will know that when you do your bakul makanan, the food basket, what do you want to give to this, underserved, unserved people? So we're excited to be working with them on that because the thing is, the next level would be to enable them to do digital payments directly, which they have, and to also see the analytics behind, are they more inclined towards using Do It Now transfer with which provider and why? So then it gives them that ability to have more access. And when they create this kind of like payment behavior and needs behavior, you then put in your agentic AI, and that agentic AI can actually curate and design for those of us who are interested in CSR, what targeted subsidies or targeted aid or targeted support can they provide? And it will be just in time, reducing wastage, reducing all these other excesses that you really don't want to do, right? So that's just one example. There's a couple more, but I think I better stop in the interest of time. Yeah.
Thank you, Azleena. But actually what you brought up is like very linked to what Encik Shah just now mentioned about lineage, right? The traceability of the data. Because with that, then you can actually do more with AI. I really want to have more questions for you, Joseph, but perhaps you can start us off with the final question. And this is an interesting one for me. What is one underutilized opportunity at the intersection of digital innovation and sustainability that Malaysia could lead in, but hasn't yet? Use your hat of, being a WEF lighthouse, right? What are some areas that you think Malaysia could lead in?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, right? So I think first of all is the current trends, right? If you look at the trends, net zero, renewable energy, solar, and in Malaysia particularly, there's a lot of investment going into data centers, mushrooming. So these are the current trends. And then meeting the demand, clean energy, meeting the demand of these data centers is very critical. We are working closely with the energy utility providers, TNB, Suruhanjaya Tenaga, and all that. So there is a gap in terms of the supply. Supply meeting the demand. Demand is accelerating from all these hyperscalers, the Googles, the Meta, and all these guys. So for data centers to pick up, we need to have the supply base. And what opportunity that I see is how can the supply and demand balance? And how can we come up with an aggregated model for the entire Malaysia nation, understanding the total demand, and then what kind of supply base that can meet up to this demand, and how we can use data to kind of come up with an algorithm model. Then you have a balancing act, and you're meeting the demand. There's no under supply, and you are right at the demand, and you are able to meet the future needs of investors coming into Malaysia, and investments, even banks, right? Banks investing, like green financing coming up with all these solar projects is kind of timely, and there's no wastage in capital capex. So there is an opportunity. I think that Malaysia can lead, working with all those technology providers, the investors, even collaboration in ASEAN. So this is ASEAN, right? There's this third-party access right now to the grid. So it's kind of opening up. So how you aggregate the supply, because of the demand is higher than the supply, so we need to open up the grid. So how can we come up with a balancing model with AI to kind of predict what the demand is going to be and how I can meet up with the supply? So I think that's an opportunity that Malaysia can lead in at this juncture.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Same question, Azleena. If we could keep it shorter, so what is one opportunity that you feel sits at the intersection of digital technology and sustainability that Malaysia could lead in?
How short can I be? But
2 sentences?
2 sentences. Okay. I would say look at agentic commerce because the thing is one of the key driving factors of growth is actually the ability to ride the wave of AI not as a threat but as an opportunity.
Thank you, Azleena. For yourself, Encik Shah?
Yeah, for me, it's there's lots of opportunities, but I do feel that there are certain things that we need to address first to unlock them. And one of these is really about let's have a concerted effort for the country where data and standards is concerned, because I do feel that there's a lot of alignment that's needed. Energy supply and demand, data standards, between GLCs and public sectors and stuff like that. I believe there's a lot of funding that's available, and I do feel that it's not optimized right now because I think it's in
Keeping it real. I like that.
We want to keep it real, right? So I think really let's have a collaborative look into data and standards, because that's the key to everything.
Thank you. And for you, Rushdi?
Just towards public sector. As I said,
As the leading force to coordinate everything?
Exactly. I'd like to reiterate, 10% of the workforce is in the public sector. So I think if public sector leads the way, then whereby the private sector could come in and contributes to this conversation. But again, we can't be our head must not be in the sand with regards to what's happening out there. No, I think yesterday the Prime Minister was saying, that the ASEAN countries should come together under the threat of this tariff. Although Malaysia is among the lowest, 25%, Vietnam 20%, but the others 35, 40. And how do you get this ESG and digital transformation agenda in with this big shadow of looming, whereby each of the products that we're producing will suffer all these things. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate all the insights that our panelists have shown. If I could invite you to the front of the stage for just a quick picture taking. This way. Can we have a round of applause for our panelists, please?
We hope you've enjoyed the episode. For more information about business growth in the ASEAN region, please visit our website www.iotbusiness-platform.com.